Today, card fighters, we are going over an excitingly new deck profile on my updated variation of Oselargest. Now, Oselargest was one of the Dark States trial deck bosses that I've been playing with for a long time. I've already done 2 videos on him, and today will be the 3rd as I showcase to you guys my updated take on this deck for the February format of Cardfight, Vanguard, Divine Z. Now, I know that Oselargest is getting support within set 7 as well as all the other trial deck boss monsters, but before that came out, I really wanted to see what this deck can do. I feel like my last variation of this deck did not really push it to its limits, and with all of these start decks receiving powerful grade 1 promo supports, I wanted to see how Oselargest's promo is going to take this deck to the next level, and my gosh, it did. The new support gives this deck an energy boost, more card advantage, more soul, more bodies onto the board, and lets this deck play with more combos, draw more pieces, and emphasize that defensive style of play that Oselargest surprisingly plays like. The deck always drew a lot of cards and could do multi-attacks, but with the new support as well as new generic Dark State support, the deck has definitely become a lot stronger and a lot more defensive since my last iteration. I'm super excited to showcase you guys all the updates I made for this deck, and there's been a lot of work for it. No, seriously, stop the music. I have to show you guys something. Like, I showed it on Facebook, but I don't think you guys fully understand, like, the insane amounts of, like, notes and stuff that I took on this deck. Like, I'm a diehard fan, you know. I'm a little mentally ill. Please send help. But enough rambling, we're about to finally get into this deck profile, and while you're watching, you guys already know what to do. If you enjoy seeing content like this, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do not forget to hit the notification bell so you guys are always seeing my newest videos coming out. Okay, you guys, so to get this party started, we are going to be looking at my ride line for Oselargest, and it's still the same from the trial deck. Now, Oselargest's ride line is very integral to its play style. The additional soul charge and the draw from Nebuchadnezzar is extremely important. Our ride line also contains 2 different targets we can call out with Oselargest's ability that actually has some pretty good use and come up every once in a while. Now into the main deck, I am playing 3 copies of my Persona ride target, Cruel Beast Demonic Lord Oselargest. Now, Oselargest, there's not really much to talk about. I think I've glazed the hell out of this card, but to quickly go over it, it is a Persona Ride Searcher. It allows you multiple attacks by calling cards off from the soul and gives 10k power to unit called out via from the soul effect. The great thing about this deck compared to the previous iteration and why Oselargest is getting better is that this deck is getting a 5th attack generator in the next wave of support, which will drastically change the entire chemistry of this deck. But currently right now it does 4 attacks. 4 attacks that are high powered, by the way, compared to the previous iteration, thanks to the new support, Tilligan being a much better piece, and the guaranteed Persona Ride going up from turn 4 all the way up to turn 5. This deck definitely has improved in terms of its consistency, as well as fixed most of the problems that it had in every other iteration, thanks to the new support from Oselargest, as well as the fantastic support that Dark States has to offer. For my next card for this deck, I am playing 4 copies of Steam Artist Tilligan. Originally a beat stick piece for Oselargest in the first wave of support, this card has actually become important to your deck's draw engine. Combining this card with the new grade 1 promo will allow you to do a draw 2 combo every single turn, and with certain extenders that you might play into the deck depending on whatever variation of this deck you want to play, you might be able to do a draw 3 or 4 combo in certain setups. Oselargest has definitely been able to take better advantage of this card with its secondary ability to gain additional 15k power when you soul bounce out a copy of it and draw more cards. It gives value to all the dead cards in your soul so that you can convert it into some card advantage, helping this deck heal with its hand size while improving its power, which has always been a problem for decks like these. Being able to draw cards, while fantastic, if you can't hit your opponent does not matter, but Tilligan does not have that problem. A 28k beater that we can use combined with the Vanguard's effect makes it a 38k beater, and then when we're done with him we can use certain card effects to move him to the soul to convert him into card advantage. Truly a fantastic piece for this deck, and in this variation of the deck we can take advantage of this card at its maximum capacity. For my next card, I'm playing 1 copy of Timeless Pierce Dragon. This was a tech that I put into my original Oselargest deck. I still enjoy this card. Every once in a while it does come up, and that's why I only played at 1 compared to the 2 for my last list. There's more important cards in there, but essentially speaking, it serves the same purpose. The deck does not want to fall into a Tilligan beatdown strategy where every turn I call Tilligan. Every once in a while, I'll be in a situation where I need something to close out the game, and in decks like these, usually it's just you gotta do the same thing over and over again, just pray for triggers. I did not want that. Timeless Pierce Dragon when your opponent's at 4 or 5 damage, and depending what your trigger ratio is like, can become a very scary card. Now for my next card, making her way back into the deck, I am playing 3 copies of Famed Blaze Demonic Lady Orions. Now, Orience is a part of the Dark States order package. Like all order packages, she has a counterblast unit to get the order, and then the normal order that you play to get her first effect going. Oriens is back in the deck because the deck did not have an early game and it had a bit of a power problem. I've discussed this earlier. The Dark States package gives power, it gives you soul charge, and then it gives you access to Oriens. This card, like all order searchers in our nations, are always great. A top 5 check to get more units onto the board. It gave you early game. It also gave you draw and power, and while the grade 2 Oselargest support card Full Pigment Dragon does the same thing, this card just felt better. Well, it does cost Soul Blast instead of Counter Blast, which is in this deck kind of iffy in terms of resources. It forced you to pay more attention to your soul than normally. It gave better numbers and major attacks matter. That was a huge thing I had to overcome with this deck because I was always looking for a way to improve power and experimenting with different units to get power. But at the end of the day, when I finally put this card into the deck with her grade 1 variation and the order, it just made a lot more sense. My early game was finally existent. I had something to go into and I was able to still make good numbers so I keep up with the other decks, while at the same time I have a unit that accomplished the same thing that Full Pigment Dragon did, which at the end of the day was just draw a card. I just need more cards in my hand because I'm not playing a heavy draw variation that like other Oselargest players are using with the Tilligan, the promo, and the Full Pigment Dragon to draw a bunch of cards, because at the end of the day, Full Pigment Dragon doesn't get numbers, so that didn't matter. And then on top of that, the problem with Full Pigment Dragon in this current meta is that if you play against a deck like Levy Dress, which is very popular right now, and your column swinging 18k, all they have to do is pick power away from the Pigment Dragon, and then they draw a card and they don't have to block anything. At least with this card with a booster, it's still a 13k attack, so I can force a 5k out of their hand, which means that in that matchup, it's no longer as bad from a deck that doesn't get a lot of power playing against a deck that can take away power. That's not fun at all. For my next card, I'm playing 4 copies of Black Sky Thunder Quaking Queen Laminia. The Ride Cycler for Dark Stage, she's just fantastic in this deck at any time period. Being able to convert this card into draw is always great, especially in the early game. Her secondary effect is guaranteed in this deck because we are guaranteed Persona Ride, which means that if we play against control, we can use her to get our board back, build up some soul, and just get things going. Despite the energy charge from the new promo, unfortunately, we cannot play with the Energy Blast Ride Cycler because it takes up too much energy still unless you go second, and we're not always guaranteed to do that. And on top of that, I just felt like the superior call from this card was better than just 5k in boost. For my next card, I'm playing 3 copies of Famed Harsh Demonic Lordling Bathroom. The grade 1 unit of the order package for Dark States, it has the power to search out the order Reception Hall of the Haunted Mansion, which is a card we'll discuss later. It gets 5k power when you activate an order. Outside of the order that we search from this, we do play our Regalius piece, so this card has a chance to be active outside of the order that we play for it, and it's just another power-up piece we can play in the early game. For my next card, and the MVP of the deck, the only reason why we were talking about Oselargest today, 3 copies of Hottery Peerage. When I tell y'all that this really is the only reason why we're talking about Oselargest today, I mean it. Now for a promo card, I'll quickly go over it, but she has the same effect as all the promos, where you can Soul Blast 1 to call this card from drop zone as long as you don't possess another copy of it, and you get to Energy Charge 1. Her secondary effect is what makes her so valuable in this deck. At the end of the battle that she boosts a unit with Tilligan in its name, you put her and Tilligan into the soul, you draw a card, then you choose a card from your drop zone and move it into the soul. This is huge for 2 reasons, really 3. The first reason is the fact that this card will activate your Tilligan, convert her calling the Tilligan out from hand or soul, however it might have been, into some card value. So that's one. The second reason is the fact that this card resets the soul and resets itself up for your following turn afterwards. Once you put Peerage into the soul, Tilligan will soul blast 2 cards, and it can't be Tilligan as one of them. So it's always going to be Peerage and then something else. You can use her effect to put in something either A, that you're going to call out with Oselargest on the second attack, or B, put something in that you're going to soul blast out later for the Tilligan attack on the following turn, or during the same turn, or a unit that you're going to save for your soul later. There's a lot of utility that can be done with this card, and the fact that it lets you draw 2 cards every single turn combined with Tilligan means that we have a draw 2 engine in this deck to keep our hand size healthy every single turn. And the fact that it reoccurs itself is great, because sometimes if you normally in combo decks, if you don't draw into the combo piece to get things going, it's bad. This deck does not have that problem, thankfully, thanks to Hottery Peerage, and the fact that she can call herself back and convert one of our best offensive pieces into a resource piece at any time that she's there. For my next card, it is 2 copies of Purple Jewel Beast Amethyst. I'm very big on resource management, and this deck does use up CB. Because we always Soul Blast out our wide line targets first outside of the grade 2, depending on our games, we will use Amethyst for its countercharge effect. The defensive skill also comes up in this deck, which just adds more into the defensive nature of this deck. Having another 20k shield outside of your front triggers is fantastic. You know, the cat's always strong cards. For my next card, it is 4 copies of Steam Skara Zargon. An extremely important card, Zargon adds pressure to our deck as well as better resource management. Being able to soul charge 2 cards from our drop zone is huge because we play a lot of effects in this deck that do Soul Blast. Orions is one of the heavier Soul Blast cards we do play in this deck, and while the order that the deck now incorporates does help, we still need ways of reoccurring soul for other abilities. Whether getting those Tilligans back into soul, those Oselargest for Tilligan's ability, or just incorporating the soul for any of our other card effects, Zargon is a fantastic resource management piece to have in this deck and something that you want to see in the early game. Part of our mulligan is getting 1 copy of Zargon to put behind our Vanguard, and at least just swing with that. Nebuchadnezzar will be a big number on the first turn that you're on there, so this card is guaranteed to get active at least once in the game, despite your opponent blocking your attacks. Next up, I play 3 Dark State Sentinels and then 1 copy of Elementaria. Now for my triggers. My trigger lineup has been very experimental, but I'm actually finally on something that I'm happy with. I'm playing a total of 8 critical, 4 of the effect, 4 generics, 1 copy of the Dark States OT. I am playing 3 front triggers, and then I am playing 4 generic heal triggers. Now the triggers in this deck I've done a lot of experimenting with, and this is the lineup that I like the most. I play fronts over draws because front triggers in this deck just are way more impactful. You already draw a lot thanks to your Tilligan Peerage combo and your Vanguard search ability, Orion's draw ability, Orion's search ability, your ability to search out the grade 2 order from the grade 1 searcher. Your deck has a lot of draw and search power now thanks to the support of multiple engines able to improve your hand size, which means that I didn't feel like draw triggers were necessary. While it feels really good to hit draw triggers in the early game, it doesn't fix or it doesn't improve the offensive nature of this deck, which is where the deck is really weak at right now because of all the draw cards that we have in there. So since I have all these draw cards in my main deck, I didn't feel the need to add that into my triggers. I wanted more an aggressive trigger lineup, which is why I decided to go for 8 crits, 3 fronts. I would even argue that maybe 7 crits, 4 fronts would be good because the only other OT I would play in this deck outside of the Dark States one is the blue OT, which both have critical effects. So you're technically playing 8 crits in your deck regardless. And that's why I think fronts are just better. Fronts, you know, do so much work. Crits, we already know how good crits are. And then for heals, there's a discussion to have right now. I actually think that it's very valid to play the 2 generic heals and then 2 of the restanding heals. Varga restands, I know Levy Dress restands. I think that we're getting more restanding support in the next wave of stuff coming out. I think we're getting like a lot of stuff. Every deck's getting like some form of restander or at least battle phase superior caller. I know that. So that's an argument to be had about the heals. But generically speaking, I always like playing the guaranteed 15k shield. Just keep it safe. And for the orders of my deck, I'm going to go ahead and showcase them all at once. My 2 effect orders that I play is the Reception of the Famed Demonic Mansion. This is the order that you get from the order package. It gives you soul charge, 5k power of your units, with the power to recycle itself. It does everything that I wanted in order to do for this deck to make sure our numbers are good, our soul is healthy, and then we have a key piece that we can recycle whenever we need more resources to keep our deck going. It's searchable thanks to the grade 1 order, so we always have access to it if we don't want to use a discard effect for the same turn that we have it, but it is always there for us when we need it. If we don't have a way of getting it back thanks to Bathroom, then we can use this card effect to get rid of the grade 3s that are dead in our hand and convert this into value for next turn for our Bathroom to at least give him power and then something else to get power if I don't need the additional soul charge. For my Regali's piece of this deck, it is not present on me only because I didn't realize I wanted it till later because I experimented with a lot of things, but imagine this card as Union in the Sky. Now, Union in the Sky is Regali's piece with the following ability of Energy Blast 3 or Counter Blast 1, give your Vanguard 15k power, draw a card. If you bind a copy of a Vanguard variation that you have in the drop zone, so you know with the same name as your Vanguard, essentially Persona Right target, you get 25k power instead of 15k power. This felt fantastic for the deck. It was another defensive piece you can use, and it's also got the ride cycling secondary effect. I forgot to mention that, but essentially speaking, this is another ride cycle in your deck, another defensive piece that your deck has. None of the other Regali's pieces felt good. Bracing Angel Ladder might be the only one to play outside of Radiance Caliber, and just because we do have main deck order support units that matter, like Orions and Bathroom. those are just fine. But I feel like playing Unit in the Sky because this deck is always guaranteed a Persona copy in the drop zone. It gives extra defense, gives you a draw, and it lets us convert any extra energy that we may have into some sort of value. You never want to use the CB because you're going to end up using it for your other card effects, which means that that's something that actually matters. But if we do go second, this is a card that can take value of that, and normally if you're playing the Energy Blast cycle, you can only use it once or twice in the game anyway. Oselargest has definitely come a long way since its first introduction. This is one of the most powerful start decks we possibly have, and all the fantastic support that it has in one of the strongest nations currently in the game. I think that Oselargest getting a 5th attack is going to be fantastic. When that card comes out, it will change the entire chemistry of this deck because of the nature of the card, and I'm excited to showcase that build in the future. Tell me your guys' thoughts in this deck in the comment section below, any improvements I can make to it, any questions that you have about my list. If you guys are interested in seeing a combo video for this deck, also let me know that down below. I'm not going to be doing mulligans and combos anymore for my deck profiles because it makes them too long, and if you guys just want more training videos like I used to do back in the day, please let me know down in the comment section below. I really want to give you guys everything that you're asking for this year for my content to improve the channel and make it better, but you have to communicate with me and tell me what you want. And with that being said, card fighters, I want to thank you so much for staying tuned throughout the entirety of this video. I will catch you later. Peace.